You are in the Temple of the Rant, where I rant about whatever my $15 a month plus patrons want me to rant about. You can get one of these by being one of those. This one's for Soul, who says, rant about other YouTubers stealing your ideas / taking influence from you. Speaking as a YouTuber who has taken some of your ideas, such as having a playlist that contains all my videos, and a podcast series where I released a video a day for an entire year, etc. For context, here's my content biting channel link. And he links to a channel called, I already forgot the name, even though I was just looking at it, called... I think it was Fandom Pop. Well, first of all, you're not even stealing my ideas there, buddy, because the Every YouTube Video Featuring Digibro playlist is just one of many ideas that I stole from Your Movie Sucks. He had a playlist of all his videos that he was in because he'd been in a bunch of guest videos. I went ahead and copied the idea. I also copied from him when I did Your Anime Sucks Sword Art Online was based on Your Movie Sucks. I even used all the same music he used because he has a playlist of all the music he uses in his videos, and I just went through that and used a bunch of the music. It was meant to be a send-up, and a lot of my work has been directly influenced by other creators. I'm somebody who... look, the way I view art is that inherently... it's just a coalition of your interests, right? Let's say you write a book. Nobody has ever written a book having never heard of a book. You would not come to the conclusion that that was something you wanted to do unless you were already aware that it was a thing people do. You don't even necessarily have to read a book, but you probably will read at least one book to have some idea of how books work before you go and decide that that's something you want to do. Most likely, the reason that you would even think to write a book is that you love reading books. Most likely, if you come to the conclusion that you want to do a type of thing, it's because you were already a fan of that thing. Well, ergo, your understanding of what that thing is going to be highly informed by the ones that you've consumed. And even if you try to do something different, even if you try to mix up the formula in some way and not be too much like your influences, your understanding of what even functions at all is only because you consumed things that you felt functioned. So, or you tried to do the opposite of things that you thought didn't function. So, I think that this idea that you can have totally original thoughts and ideas, it utterly bullshit, utterly ridiculous. If you even think to say let's say you're gonna make music and you decide to make a band where you're like, oh, we're not gonna sound like any other rock band, but we're still gonna use a guitar, a bass, and a drum. Well, you sound at least somewhat like every other rock band because you're using the same instruments. Even if you try to make them sound as different as possible, the idea of using those instruments is something that was something you got from somewhere else, right? So most people innately create things that are a pastiche of their experiences, things that they themselves have gone through in their personal lives, things that they've consumed, impressions that have been left on them by the world, and often by media. And you'll see how people who consume a lot of media almost innately end up making something that feels like it was born out of the remixing of media's mere existence, like say a Quentin Tarantino film. This is a man who has clearly watched a fuckload of movies, and since so many of his experiences or his understandings are informed by the movies he's seen, he creates things that resemble things that existed in other movies, even more so than creating something that resembles real life, because his real life is watching other movies. So, and he pours all of these different understandings that he's gotten from this broad swath of different impressions of that movies have left on him, and combines them into something that feels different and feels distinct. So I've always looked up to that kind of creator because I tend to look at things in a meta lens. I am not so much a fan of individual works. I'm a fan of how everything is interconnected. I'm a fan of the ways that people, that this web of influences spirals out. I'm more interested in a work because of its influences or what it influenced, and how those things all fit together. So when I approach creating things, if I consume something that leaves an impression on me, that makes me think that there is some value in it, that I want to try to, to that I think I could use some of that, I immediately try to duplicate it. I immediately try to work it into my style and figure out what can I draw out of this. So a significant amount of my videos start off with like the mindset that I'm doing this guy's style. And it's usually not that apparent. Sometimes you can, if you listen to a lot of my videos, you'll often hear that like the first sentence or the first paragraph sounds different from the rest of it. And it's because I have a difficulty sometimes finding the flow, because those first few sentences were very influenced by somebody else. Like maybe those first couple sentences sound like a Mr. B-Tongue video, or they sound like a Hyperbit Hero video, or a Gaming Brit or something. Like someone else's video, Super Bunny Hop. Like I took their style, and the initial spark of my idea was very much in their style. So the first couple sentences are written that way. And I'm kind of trying to emulate their speaking style at the beginning, but then inevitably it then becomes my style, you know, because as I keep writing, the ideas start to flow better. It becomes more of, you know, my stream of consciousness, and my reading takes on that form as well. So a significant amount of my content has some influence from somebody else, and a lot of it is deliberate attempts to copy someone else's writing. If you look at, for instance, Weird Anime Sex, that video was supposed to be an Endless Jest style video. If you look at, again, the Your Anime Sucks, obviously YMS. There's some Mr. Plinkett in there as well, and I've done other videos that are more Plinkett-esque. So, and I'll often make direct reference to them. I'll shout them out. Like, I want people to know that these are my influences, because I want you to then go consume their stuff and see that as well. But, like, what comes out of that is that after I've created that thing that tries to be like them, I can see what elements of it worked, what parts of that I want to incorporate further in the future, and then I combine it with other influences, and it becomes, you know, this more complete package. So when I see other people who are writing in a style that's very similar to mine, I see it as, you know, they're at the beginning of starting to understand their own voice. Like they're copying me in this moment so that they can get a foothold, and then eventually they're going to start incorporating other influences. Eventually they're going to start sounding more and more different until they sound like something that doesn't sound like anybody else. Even though it has echoes of everyone else's voice in it, it sounds like a unique voice because nobody else combined those elements in that way. Because none of the people who influenced me have the same group of influences, you know? You're not going to hear an element of Hyperbit Hero in a YMS video, but you might hear elements of both of those in my video, so it doesn't sound like either one, you know? And so, like, when I pull all that stuff together, and I'm influenced by everything, like people who are older than me, people who are my age, people who are younger than me, like anything I think is interesting, I incorporate it right away. You know, I made this big post one time about my musical influences, for instance, called, it was on my Reddit, and it was just like a rundown of every single thing that influenced every song I made, and like how they were trying to combine styles of like different artists and stuff like that into something new. So, like, yeah, if other people are doing that with my stuff, obviously I encourage it, because it's exactly what I've been doing the whole time. You know, it's really funny that, like, I literally copied the idea of every video featuring me from YMS, and now you've copied it, and, like, a bunch of people have copied it, because it's just a good idea. Like, it's something that I would think would become standard. It's like, as soon as you hear it, you think, oh, like, yeah, I also show up in YouTube videos on other people's channels. This is a helpful thing to have. Why wouldn't you do that? Like, everybody probably should do that, you know? So yeah, that's it.